Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Iteration podcast. This is Chirag and Channs.
Hello.
Today we want to talk to you uh, about uh, about how trunk-based development is an important ingredient towards the journey to implement continuous delivery on teams. So let's talk about that. And to start with, let's first talk about how traditionally teams used to manage the problem of multiple developers working simultaneously, and how to integrate their code periodically. Chance, can you get us started with how was it done many years ago and what are the problems of that?
Yeah. Chirag, source control systems have become powerful over the years, and even 10, 15 years ago, they were quite mature. And one good feature that they provided was it was very easy to create branches. Right, and then the idea of branching is that you can parallelize work. So if your team has 10 developers and you're doing pair programming, and you could potentially do 5 streams of work, then you could maybe have 5 branches going on. And then that pair of developers would work on that feature, and then eventually merge that feature back into the main line. So the main line has been called different names over the years. It used to be called master, then it became trunk, and these days main. But ultimately, there is a trade off here in terms of how long does a feature need to be visible in the trunk, and also how difficult it is to merge the code back. So these branching strategies, like traditionally, have been called different names, and especially after Git and GitHub became quite famous, there were two workflows called as Git Flow and GitHub Flow. Basically, they are like formal structures that you create, like feature branches per feature. So let's say you and me are pairing on login feature. We create like a login feature branch, and then we do all the commits over there. It's up to us to pull the changes from the main trunk, or we live in our own world. And then let's say that takes 2 weeks or 2 months, sometimes even half a year to develop. And one day we are ready to go back into the main line. And that's where a lot of theater happens, because maybe the base from which you branched off might have completely changed. It could have some architectural changes, it could have some framework changes, and generally it's very painful to merge code back. So the general idea was, yeah, let's merge often. But this idea of feature branching, either formally or informally, stood in the way of that, Chirag.
Right. And so the sort of in short, what you're saying is that the traditional ways were to create branches for every feature, and then
Hmm.
once the feature development is complete, is when where teams try and merge that back, and that
Yeah,
merge ends up being very painful and
yeah.
time consuming and error prone. And so what's the solution for that? What is it that teams tend to do that then helps them move towards actually being able to deliver continuously?
I think, in a way, half a step to come out of this difficult stage is to adopt something called a short-lived feature branches. So you continue creating feature branches, but you ensure that they don't live beyond 1 to 2 days. That essentially means that you are making the integration frequency quite high. That means whatever problems that you encountered earlier, you're going to encounter them like actually much more earlier. So it's like the magnitude of that problem is going to come down. But one other way that I've recently seen is what is called trunk based development, Chirag. So here the idea is you're moving away from basing your changes on a branch to directly making changes to the main line, which is a trunk. And what it means is essentially all developers in the team now have write access to the trunk. And earlier it used to be read access, and then they only used to merge into the trunk via a formal process. Now anybody could commit to trunk. So one side effect that you can immediately think of is most organizations are uncomfortable with untested code going live. I think one is that cultural shift should happen, that yeah, a code is always in flight, and it's okay for even incomplete changes to be part of your production code. And how do you ensure that users are not affected by that is to use a technique called as feature flags. These are binary flags that you can toggle on or off in your code, or you could build a service. It could be stored somewhere to say that, yeah, some things are in flight, they are in the trunk already, and this is the way that I go to prod. But I'm going to ensure that the UI related changes, service related changes, or data related changes are essentially turned off for the user until this feature is complete or it is scheduled to go live. So what I've seen is, yeah, trunk based developments where developers make commits directly to trunk, and they're essentially able to control the feature visibility based on feature flags. Chirag.
Yeah, and this has several benefits. When teams adopt trunk-based development, one of
Hmm.
the first things that happens is that developers know that every check-in they're going to make is going to production.
Yeah.
And that is very useful because yeah, your actual feature will be hidden behind a feature flag,
Hmm.
and you will make sure of that right from the beginning. But the code is still going to get integrated with the rest of the code, and it is going to go into production.
Hmm.
And so one of the things it does, it is actually it makes sure that developers start writing unit tests and
Yeah.
integration tests right from the beginning. They don't have anywhere to hide in terms of let me build the feature and then
Yeah.
towards the end I will do some testing and then it'll be ready to merge back. No, right from day one, any code that you're writing, by the end of the day, if you want to check in, it will be checked in into the trunk, and
Hmm.
tomorrow somebody will go to production for some other feature, and your code will also go into production. So that it puts a good kind of pressure on developers to make sure that every piece of code that they are writing is unit tested and test driven. So in that way, it's a good thing that it starts to move people in that direction. And secondly, then it just allows teams to think more uh, flexibly about their features so that they don't end up building features that are getting integrated into trunk all the time, but still takes months to add value to
Hmm.
the user. So automatically what they would do is naturally is split the features into smaller bits that can actually, it's anyways going to production right? So
Hmm.
you just, if you
Yeah.
can build it in such a way that small slices of it are being built over one slice every week or so, then every week the users can start getting additional smaller features coming in, and that starts to add business value. So that is
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit where you can start to generate more business value on the back of your technical ability to go live more frequently, and so on. And so all the testing of the feature can start to happen with everything integrated.
Agree.
But for testing, the feature is turned on, but otherwise it is turned off, and all
Yeah.
of that can start to happen. So trunk-based development is one of those things, like writing clean code, right? Like writing, good tests, like adopting the test pyramid and associated testing practices. This is one of those branching related practices that
Hmm.
teams, when they pick up, is when they will really unlock the potential of continuous integration and continuous delivery. So
Yeah.
highly recommend it. If you haven't tried it, try doing it in your team, then start moving towards that direction. And like Chan said, initially maybe the first step would be to make sure that if you are doing feature branches, then you make the duration for which these branches last much smaller, so that it
Hmm.
comes down to 1 or 2 days, and then eventually also try and move to just one branch, the main branch itself, and do everything on the trunk. So that would be our recommendation. All right, then. Thanks for tuning in. See you later in another episode. Bye bye.